So, my dear friends, we are continuing to read Bhagavad Gita as it is. So we are continuing to read the 13th chapter that is called the Enjoy the Consciousness and the Nature. These are the three elements, the three ends that we have to understand. Three elements, three kinds of truth that we have to understand. Probably it will take us a lot of time, years of practice and meditation, and a clean way of life in order to understand all this. So probably it's not clear for us to understand it. This is the first time we are understanding these notions. You see, sometimes it's even hard for us to understand the meaning of our being. It's hard to find the object of our meditation, the object of our knowledge. And for an ordinary person, it is hard to understand. But Bhagavad Gita, it helps us with it. So in these three terms, we can start our process of realization. The nature is prakriti in Sanskrit. This is the kind of resource. But resource for what? Just for the human? Well, this is the just for pleasure. Just for pleasure. This is the sense in being in this nature. This is the main principle of life. I just want to have some joy. I just want to have some happiness. Sukham dukham. This is the definition of these two types. Happiness and distress. They go hand by hand. I don't want to have any distress. I want to have any distress and sufferings in my life. I just want to enjoy this life. So this nature is called the enjoyer. And the consciousness. The pieces of consciousness, there are two types of consciousness. So the first one is limitless. It's everywhere. It's feeling everything. Inside of this nature is all pierced by the consciousness. Not only by the pieces, microorganisms and insects in all forms of living beings. It's all located inside the matter, inside of each living entity, and we still have to understand it. Now, consciousness, is it the same in all living beings, or does it differ? Bhagavad Gita says that it doesn't actually differ by the type of life. It's only the visual manifestation, but not the internal. So consciousness is anti-material nature. So we have matter and antimatter. So these terms, they were introduced in the 1960s by the Soviet scientists. So that's where they had come up with the notion of antimatter. So and after this introduction of this antimatter, so we didn't even understand that there's an antimatter exists. That was quite interesting. And Prabhupada, he started using this word as being a spiritual one, because spirit is separated from matter. It has opposite features and qualities. But there's only one common thing. Everything is coming from Brahman, from one source. So all of them, they exist at the same time. But the nature of existence is opposite, because matter changes form. It's constantly changing. It's temporary, but the spirit never changes. You see, it's opposite. Matter is ignorance, because it has no consciousness. But spirit is the one which has the consciousness. So if we take a look at these opposite qualities, we will understand some understanding of the spirit. But it will be not full understanding, but just the direction of knowledge. From matter to another direction. The spirit itself is not actually an antipode of matter. It does not depend on matter. So you cannot say that spirit is a proton with an opposite charge, like an antiproton, like minus and plus. No, you cannot say that. It's still the sphere of matter. So spirit is something that is uniting all the qualities, all the features. It's solid. So there are two types of spirit, the super soul and an individual soul. So the enjoyer in this context refers to the unlimited soul. So this is the real enjoyer. The enjoyer should be also the source of the enjoyment. And in this world we are looking for the source of enjoyment, of pleasure. And using our senses we understand what's pleasant, what's not pleasant for us, what gives us joy, what gives us pleasure. Soft linen, comfortable, pleasant linen, or fresh shower in summer and warm or hot shower in winter. So that's how we live, that's how we regulate our lives. And in this you will not find any person on this planet completely happy. That's amazing. So the question is why? Because the true enjoyment can only be gotten, received from the one that can enjoy. So let's take an analog, an example. Simplified one. If you want to see something beautiful, we have to meet a person that is seeing this person and is able to portray it, for example, at the exhibitions. And the one who enjoys this life more than we do, he gives us the joy, the pleasure. The one who's got a beautiful voice. So people go and listen to this person, they enjoy it. So this is an image of an enjoyer. So it turns out we are dependent on the person who is enjoying this life more, because he gives us this enjoyment as well. Well, we all know that the cells in prison, like solid cells, so there have been some experiments run on people sitting in these cells in prison for several days, completely alone. I saw the recording of this experiment. It was a long time ago. So there was a person in this individual cell. Everything was white, the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Probably there was kind of a model in there, kind of tiles, but everything was very uniform, everything was white. The linen, the clothes, the room itself, so nothing extra, no other things inside. So the scientists were just observing his behavior, so they were trying to understand what was going to happen to him. It is said that in 3 days a person might have some hallucinations. Not every person can tolerate it. So the person started seeing something that doesn't really exist. He starts talking to someone. So remember, there's no noise, there's no time, no windows, no doors. So there's no the source of enjoyment. So the person himself cannot find the source of enjoyment. You know how hard it is to spend so many hours, 5 or 6 hours in an airplane. It seems to be fast, it's not like 24 hours in a train, 5 or 6 days. So when I was flying, it wasn't that easy to tolerate. So we were given some newspapers, we were reading something, sleeping, waking up again. So what they did, they've installed TV sets. So this was the source of enjoyment. So that means that the person himself cannot find this happiness inside of him. The sense is that the higher, the supreme enjoyer is located in the heart of every living being. He is there. So what we cannot find outside, we've been looking for that for so many life cycles. That's quite a complicated path. So we cannot find it either on the higher planets, on the lower planets. Both in paradise or on our planet, there is no complete happiness until you find this happiness inside of yourself. So it's called Purusha. That's one of God's names. There are three avatars, three expansions of Vishnu in this world. So all the Vedic scriptures, they refer to these notions. Our mind and feelings and thoughts, they have to be concentrated on this source of enjoyment. If I'm concentrated on Vishnu, this will be the same as watering the roots of a tree. All the rest will be satisfied. So today we're reading the text number 13. So last time we covered the first 12 texts. The field of activity was covered, the knower of the field, which is the individual soul in our body, the one that realizes this body. And the field of activity is just a physical body. There are 24 elements that this body consists of. Remember, the primary elements: earth, water, air, and ether. The false ego, the not manifested 5 senses of perception, all this together, and that's how we have these 24 primary elements which our bodies consist of. In combination, it is hard to understand that everything we see around is a combination of the same elements that are existing everywhere. So everything material has the same nature. If you just change the constituents of this sum, it's not going to change. Like 1 plus 1 is still equal to 2. So starting from 8 to the 12th text, the knower of the field was described. So he consists of the qualities, the uniform qualities. They're different, but at the same time they're uniform. So at the same time, a soul has various qualities, but they are all uniform. They have the same origin. All of them are coming from the contact with the absolute truth. As we see, the qualities by themselves are impossible to define, only thanks to the interactions, to the relationships. A soul reaching God emanates these qualities, but when it contacts the matter, its qualities transform into the modes of our nature activity, modes of activities, which are called gunas. So the text number 13. I shall now explain the knowable, the object of the knowledge, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, having no beginning and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So how do you understand that? Action without cause and effect. So that's what we are trying to learn here in this material world, thanks to Bhagavad Gita. So now it's really philosophically here. From the point of view of yoga and some practical things, for the analysis, here we have this philosophical thinking, a very deep thinking. So why is it important to think philosophically? In the beginning, especially in the beginning. Because a philosopher is able to detach his mind from his senses, whereas to detach his thoughts from the material functions of his body, from his action and emotions. So the thought is going higher to Brahman, above the senses and emotions. So that's where it reaches the amazing depth, unlimited space. Although it's all filled with senses, but in this case they're called spiritual senses. We are moving to another sphere of sensing, thanks to the philosophical thinking. So in this way we can lift our mind and emotions to a higher level. For example, there are no desires and distress in there. If you're in Brahman, there are no desires. So how can you, like you can ask, How is it so that there are no desires? The point is that everything is there already. And there's no distress because we don't lose anything. Only when we have some desires, we can also have distress, because when we are losing something, we are getting sad. So only in Brahman you can feel that. So here this chapter, to the highest extent, is giving us the highest philosophical principles. So sometimes we have to do some job. We have to do some thinking. We have to think about these things. I don't know if I had already told you this story. So why do people have some different understanding, realization in this life, the way they treat this life? So one boy, he went to a forest and he never came back. He left his parental house. So they'd been waiting for a day and then for the second one. So then his parents decided to go for the search of this boy. There are some wild animals in this forest, probably he's dead already. So on the way, they met the first, it was a jackal. So they asked him, have you seen a boy around here? He went to the forest and he never came back. He said, yes, I saw him. And the jackal said, no, I didn't see the boy, he wasn't around. So let me just give me a second, I have to recall this story. So jackal said, I saw the boy and it's dead, so go that direction, the grave is there, so dig him out and take him away. But after that, they've met a vulture. He said, when I was flying above, I didn't see the boy. So why did they tell different stories? Because one is eating at day, the other one eats at night. Vulture said, when you dig him out, I will eat him later. And I'm a bit confused here. There's got to be a logical connection. Well, probably you will finish thinking, you will finish this story yourself. I was sure I was remembering this story, but anyway, you understand. The thinking always depends on the stomach, on the benefit, as we say now in our lives. The more beneficial in our lives has the more truth for our stomach. For genitals, the truth is the pleasure. For our tongue, the truth is in the variety of different tastes. So it has to be economically substantiated and gives us some pleasure, sensual pleasures. So it's all about tongue, stomach, and genitals. So the philosopher, he has to be above it. He has to detach his mind from all these desires. This is the Freud's philosophy. So he's introduced the notion of a thin sexual consciousness, and he had been searching it. This is quite interesting, but this is the philosophy of genitals. If you take Marx Engels' philosophy, the capital. So this is the philosophy of stomach. This is the philosophy of an economical development. There's also a philosophy of tongue. Eat, drink, have some fun. So that's the only thing. These are the only things that you have to do. When your stomach is full, your genitals are satisfied, and then your tongue also has some pleasure. So everything that people do, communism, capitalism, chauvinism, all these isms, they all do it just to enjoy their feelings. Any philosophy degrades this way. So it gets perverted, and then it goes to an end. So they start with the economical development, but then it all goes down. So first, we have to detach our mind from these from such an understanding of this life. So I'm not created. So my hands cannot enjoy the food. My eyes cannot enjoy the food as well. My legs, my brain, all these organs, they cannot enjoy the food. Only the stomach can enjoy the food. So until we satisfy Vishnu, we will never experience this trance, this very deep happiness that is pierced through all our essence. So when not only the tongue is satisfied, but we still have some problems in our minds, but when the mind is pierced with this transcendental bliss, we will be happy. So and this taste is described here very briefly. So the Brahman is the eternity. We have to understand what eternity is. Brahman. So understanding which you will taste what the eternity is. It cannot be described, the eternity cannot be described by any formula, it's limitless. There's no such formula. There's no such digit that can describe the eternity. We say eternity, and we understand that this is limitless. The taste, yes, you can feel it. The taste of eternity is transferred qualitatively. For example, let me give you an example of how we defining the strength of an diamond. So we've already talked about this example when the personality is eternal throughout all the phases of if his body's transferring, changing. We are born, then we are growing. The body is constantly changing. It's happening every second. But the personality in this body is always the same. It never changes. But this is just one person. So we can judge by the personality that it never changes. It doesn't make any sense to talk about the eternity in terms of time. It never changes. If you want to define the strength of a diamond, it's so solid. It's an example of strength. So we just test it using just one stroke. It's stronger than the metal. If you hit it just one time, you will understand that this is a diamond. You will understand the quality and properties of this material. So the same situation with the soul. So this situation was described from the 8th to the 12th text in this chapter. So all the qualities of the soul, they come from the eternity. So here we are learning how to tolerate in the material world. There are a lot of desires. So if you just tolerate something, no, you cannot achieve anything in this world. People think that we have to be active, passionate, you have to fight. In the material world, it's like that. But you see, the world is not supported by the passion and by ignorance. It's ever changing. It's getting destroyed and getting created again, and all these cycles. So if we are talking about human people society, so parental patience, our parents' patience is what matters. If there were no such qualities, the world would be much worse. It would be even more changing, would be very treacherous. If something is reliable in this world, so these are the people that can actually forgive. These are the supportive qualities. But the people living in illusion, they think of, what can you do having these qualities? Whom can you support? Because I want to support only myself. Why do I have to support anyone else? But the super soul, the God, is supporting every living entity, and we have to understand it. That is called the absolute truth. It's for everyone. And this is the taste of eternity. These relationships, the understanding, the realization of a ever-supporting power, strength of my soul. So this is called peacefulness, the happiness. If we reach this realization, we get peacefulness and happiness in our soul, and fear, having no fear. So people that have realized the difference between a spirit and body, they become fearless. So they're not worried about what they may lose during their living on this planet. Somewhere in Mahabharata I've read that at the bottom of this universe there's an egg. No one knows, even the demigods, even Brahman doesn't know about it. So it was there from the very beginning of creation. But it is said that this egg will be the source, the reason of the whole universe destruction. So when the beginning comes, the fire of wrath will come out of this egg, and pralaya will happen. So every universe will be collapsing. Of course, there are many beautiful things in this world, and everything is supposed to be destroyed. This is the quality of this material world. We don't have to be sad when we lose something, and do not get too excited when we receive something. Everything is supposed to be destroyed. But what is the sense in this life if everything that we do will be destroyed? The point is that we have to develop our spiritual qualities. So we have to have all these best qualities. You have to be devoted to God. This is the best quality. That is the real reason why this world is created. You have to be devoted to God. So on the one hand, everything is destroyed, but on the other hand, leading a good life, a pious life, you can get the liberation. There are some energies in this planet. The motives of goodness, it will help us. It will give us the taste. And it will lead us straight where we are supposed to go. You know, this universe cannot be described using just a simple map. You can just cross it when you want it. We only have to develop our taste. We'll get a higher taste of our minds, and gradually we'll lift up to the spiritual understanding, spiritual realization. The super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, and although he is the maintainer of all living beings, he transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time he is the master of all the modes of material nature. And it's everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists pervading everything. So the nature of the enjoyer is described here, Purusham. So where is this Purusha? So we have to find it, we have to find him. So he is the source of the happiness, he is the real enjoyer. That is by his nature an enjoyer. That is supporting all the living entities, all the energies, all the senses. The ability to feel, to act, everything is coming down from him. All the living beings are given these qualities by him. So this is called Purusha. So where is this Purusha? It is described here, but it is. So the Supreme Truth exists outside and inside of all living beings simultaneously. We are only inside of this body, and it's really hard to understand how can it be simultaneously everywhere at the same time. We are all restricted. We are all conditioned by this body. It's like we're living in a case. Well, we have our eyes and ears, we try to understand something. We use our tongue to lick, and we use our body to touch something, and we think that we are scientists. We think that we understand something. So simultaneously, inside and outside, moving and the not moving living entities. Between moving and non-moving, there is no difference for the absolute truth. For us, for example, to control the moving and non-moving is a different thing. It's more complicated to control the movement, because sometimes we can't just catch it. But we can only control something on our level, on the human level. There's a super speed, like a ray of light. All these atomic processes, billions of processes every second. Who controls all this? So for him, there is no difference between moving and unmoving. Everything is in the colossal speed, moving in a colossal speed, but for him, there's no difference. You cannot even understand what processes are going on in the sun. If you fire an atomic bomb there, no one will ever notice it. But the universe is at the same time is balanced. So even if there's a storm in the ocean, it's balanced. So there are a lot of processes in the universe, but still the balance is not broken. It's amazing. Because the absolute truth is in there. Everything is under control. So because he is subtle, it has a subtle nature. The subtle body of a person, the thin body of a person. So there is gross body and subtle body. We have to differ them. So this principle, two moments that we have to understand. We cannot see the subtle body. We cannot see it. We cannot touch it. So thanks to the subtle body, we can feel something. The matter is solid. It's dense. I can feel it. I can see it. I can touch it. The handrail of this sofa, this is a solid matter. But in our subtle body, it is piercing it. Just like in the air, just like we move in the air. In the water, it is harder for us to move. It has a high resistance, and we cannot move inside the earth. We are supposed to have some kind of another shape, another form. But the subtle beings, they live differently. As a matter of fact, our physical body is not as dense as the spirit body. As a matter of fact, everything is actually opposite. So the subtle body, we think that it's like emptiness, just like the air, but the matter of fact is that it's actually even more dense than the physical body. The physical body is more loosened. When we wash away all these elements of destruction in our bodies. But until we have a soul and consciousness, they support this body. Some force is keeping it together. So you can call it like a force of our body. Some kind of a force keeping all these bones and muscles together. They can contract. We are moving. So thanks to this subtle body that we cannot physically see using our eyes, we cannot see it. But these energies are acting inside. I don't know anything about it. So this is the most subtle nature, even thinner than Jiva. It's located within our hearts. So Purusha is the only one who understands the nature of everything. He knows our essence, our nature. From the beginning until the end, no one except the super soul can enter the very depth of our hearts. there's nothing to hide. I mean, it's impossible to hide anything before the super soul. So why do I have to confess to God about my deeds if He already knows about everything? So the point is that I'm clarifying myself. The point is that I'm confessing because I want to be cleaner, and the God understands it. He likes it. So I'm just trying to be more honest. I'm trying to be more spiritual, closer to Him. I have to learn how to tell the truth. If I don't talk to God, I will become a liar, because no one sees my senses, my desires. If I'm egoistic, I will be lying. I will be wanting to have some more than the rest of the people. But if I turn myself to Purusha, that knows everything about me, I will not be able to lie. So the true believers, they do not lie. It's just impossible. If someone understands God in his heart, it's just impossible to lie. It doesn't make any sense. And at the same time, he is beyond the material senses. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. So it means it's really hard to reach him, to cover this distance. So theoretically it's possible, but practically it's not. It's very far. But at the same time, he is the closest one. So you see, these two things are combining. So they coexist at the same time. You don't have to go very far. Although he's very far if you think materialistically. But if you think spiritually, he's very close to you. So for the material existence, it's impossible to reach for the material state of mind. But the one that is on the spiritual path, Purusha is becoming closer. It's an amazing process. If someone gets into our soul like very deep, it will not be very pleasant for us. But if Krishna does it, the all appealing, all attracting, he will just decorate our life. We have to pray to Krishna. We have to pray Krishna comes into our life. For that we have to understand that he knows everything about us. We just have to be sincere in front of us, before us, and in that case we'll be sincere before him. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. So, and this, at the same time, he devours inside. So it gives you the development. And at the same time, it devours everything. So he keeps everything inside of him, and at the same time giving you some freedom. So that's how it all works. So if I hired you, if I'm an entrepreneur, I will not let you spend your time somewhere outside. But Krishna says, no, it's okay. You're all mine. You can do whatever you want. You're all free. So that's why I support you. It's quite complicated to understand using just a human's brain. Because the super soul is even inside of a killer. And the super soul gives the green light to even a murder. And at the same time, the super soul is inside the victim. And also gives some signals how to avoid the killing. So which one is going to win in this situation? So which one will the super soul support? The one that has a stronger desire. A thief wants to steal, but a person with a lot of money doesn't want his money to be lost. So the one who has a stronger desire, the super soul will give the power. But at least it's said that You don't have to steal from the poor ones. Steal from the healthy one, from the wealthy ones. It is hard to understand with the emotional mind. It is hard for us to understand God, but philosophically, yes, we can understand it philosophically. From the position of eternity, this is just karma. It's just your list of karma. You know what it said. There's no fire in hell. So every sinner is bringing the fire to the hell by himself. So that's the way the world is created. We all get in this karma. Paramatma remembers all this, and in the next life we don't remember anything. But Paramatma, it gives us this list that we have to go through during this life, and plus fulfill our new desires. So that's why not everything that I desire is getting fulfilled. If you commit a sin in the previous life, that means that in this life you have to purify yourself. Until you experience sufferings, you cannot be compassionate to other people. If he himself has gone through very serious sufferings in his life, he will be able to understand what it's like to suffer. He will be compassionate. If he were very egoistic and arrogant, he was just enjoying his life, he wasn't treating people accordingly, that means in this life he has to go alone this way. He has to be exploited by other people in this life. He has to understand what it's like to be exploited. So he will be suffering a lot. He will be beaten, he will be forced to do something. And he will realize that, no, I want to live in another world. I don't want to have any exploitation. Let's live a different way. Let's live differently. So that's why, in order to understand the super soul and all the details, we will not be able. We just can have some examples, just using our fingers. But in real life, there are so many people with a mixed karma. So the super soul is needed here to understand how to treat this person. Well, when the person is good, yeah, everything is clear. But when it's mixed, well, if a person did something bad, but he's a good person, well, we have to weigh all this. We have to understand. So, in order to do that, we're not supposed to have any feelings. So Purusha has no feelings. He will not react to our feelings. It feels differently. The super soul is in the bliss. And only that's how it's appealing to the living being. It's the root of everything, but the super soul doesn't solve like physical manifestations. If there's a sore or a pimp on your hand, you see, it's giving me a lot of troubles. I'm afraid that something will happen to my hand. What can the relatives do about it? Well, it's just blowing, saying like, is it better? Is it better? Just wait until the doctor comes. They cannot do anything. They just having feelings. But when a doctor comes, he said, okay, everybody's out, so stop crying here. You're not going to be of any help. So we have to have a knife here. So he cuts it open. He cuts the sore open. He cleanses everything. And then you just go out of this room shaking and you say, thank you, doctor, you've saved my life. So someone has to be unbiased. If we are living in this world, there's a combination of matter and spirit. It is important to liberate the spirit. All the rest is not so important. The most important thing is to have the true way along which we have to go. If you take it, everything will be favorable in your life. So that's why this spiritual life is combined with a lot of difficulties and a big happiness. So that's what we call the full life. The life of saint people It's very difficult, but it's full of bliss for the spiritual realizations, for the insights. They're going through such austerities that any normal person cannot go through. It's impossible. So he is the source of light in all luminous objects. So here it says, he implies Paramatma. So we're talking about, so that can confuse here. If you find these contradictions, there's no contradiction. Brahman is all three aspects. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. This is all Brahman. This is just one word. Technically, constitutionally. Everything is spirit. Everything is spiritual. But in this Brahman, there are some varieties. So here we're not talking about an impersonal Brahman, but about Paramatma. There's a localized Brahman and personal Brahman. It's simultaneously personal and living in every heart of a living being. It's everywhere. It's simultaneously everywhere and separately in just one solid place. Qualitatively divided into components. But it's like the sun's reflection in on every plant. But the sun is only one. It's reflected in every living being differently. Just like the fire is burning differently. It depends on the woods, the quality of woods. It depends on the moisture, ash content, but the quality of fire can vary. So the fire of the super soul is burning differently in every living being, but the fire is still the same. So he's the source of light in all luminous objects. We can see stars and sun, electricity, fire. Any kind of light is coming from Paramatma. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is the knowledge, he is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. You see, everything's in here. So that's how it's constituted. We already have everything. So why we are trying so hard to develop this material nature and technologies? We lack of wisdom, we lack of intelligence. So no equipment can replace our mind, our wisdom. So if a person is a rascal riding a bike, he will still remain a rascal in the space. If he goes to space using a spacecraft, he will still remain the same person. So back in time, they used to throw stones from the castles onto the animals. Now we are throwing nuclear weapons. Has anything changed? Something has changed. The material progress, but the quality is still the same. So the real progress is the progress of consciousness. So that's what it said here. Eventually we have to understand the object of the knowledge. The source of knowledge is also the super soul. It's the absolute truth. All that you study, all that you examine, the process of understanding, this is all the same. This is the pure, loving, devoted service. It includes everything. This is Krishna himself. This is the blissful process. So there's a story from Puranas. So when the closest followers of Krishna, gopis from Vrindavan, so one day Krishna said, "Gopis, I admire your love, because you've sacrificed absolutely everything for me. Everything that you have. You are fully committed to me. Now I have a problem. And I cannot solve it. How can I pay you back? There's no such price. But the love that you have for me, I cannot pay using anything for your love. Even if I come up with something, you will not want to accept it. Even if I pay you, you will not like it. So what can I do for you? How can I pay for your love? So the outcome is very interesting. Krishna said, from now on, your devoted service to me will be the highest award for you. There will be no difference. There will be no difference from the gift, from the higher gift. All the energies will be existing there. I will exist there. So the devoted service is not separated from Krishna. The name of Krishna is not separated from Krishna himself. The form of God is not separated from God himself. There's no difference. The body and soul is the same for him. So that's the philosophy. He is the knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge. So we have to understand that knowledge is the understanding of the absolute truth. All the rest is ignorance. So having read all the qualities from the text number 8 to the 12th one, we've understood all these qualities. So you just have to be devoted to Krishna. Perform some clean and devoted service to Krishna. So remember, we read about it in the 9th chapter. Krishna is accepting everything. He accepts our love. You don't have to do any grandiose things. He doesn't need it. So even if you give flower to Krishna, he will accept it. If there is love in there, unless there is love in there, he will accept it. Thus, the field of activities, the body, knowledge and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain my nature. So that's what the devotees of Krishna are given. They enjoy the consciousness and the nature. So they're given the nature of the enjoyer. So the one who can truly enjoy in the Krishna's consciousness. So we're going to end up here today. We're going to stop reading, and now I'm ready to answer your questions. How can we explain the principle of life in moving? Everything is moving. So the soul is not moving within the body. So the body is compared to a chariot. So 5 horses are the senses the 5 senses. So then the harness is the mind that is connects the senses with the wisdom, with the intelligence. The soul is described is the rider of the chariot, but is not connected to this chariot. The horses are connected with the chariot, but how is the soul connected to the chariot? It's not connected. The horses are moving, intelligence is moving, mind is moving, they are interacting. They are creating the wheel of power. It gives us the power to fulfill something, but the soul itself is not connected with all these elements. So we're thinking that, okay, if I go to that place, I'll become happy. Or maybe to that place, maybe to this place, maybe I should go back. It's just confused, as though it's lost somewhere. But the soul itself does not move, it doesn't do anything. It's like we're sitting in a car. We cannot say that we are moving the car. Of course, we're giving it some impulse, but the car is moving by itself. So just give it an impulse and it will happen by itself. The soul itself is not movable. If you want to move it from this place, from the place of heart, you have to perform some yoga's practices, using pranas, using mind and living force. So we have to, so we can lift this energy up until here, between your eyebrows. And on that level, you see everything differently. Not using this place here in your chest. You're leaving this place, you're moving upwards. This spot between your eyebrows. And on that level, you're not connected to your body anymore. You can clearly understand that you're just living in a case. It's just like in a dream. We eat during our dreams, but we cannot be saturated. We cannot be full. It's just an illusion. Have I answered the whole question? Okay, there's another question. So how can we imply the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in our lives? So how can we use this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in our lives? So it's happening gradually. You have to act. Remember Arjuna, he had to fight. He has used his knowledge in order to fulfill his duty. So Krishna is calling us to fulfill our duties. He's also describing the types of people, the nature of people, so that we could orientate who I am and what my duty is in this life. So we have to do everything thinking about God constantly. And you have to fulfill your duties. How are desires connected with my karma? And why super soul is actually my conscience. Sometimes I hear it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes during some kind of blackouts in my life I do some silly things. So why is it happening? So we don't have material desires initially. All the material desires are actually given to us artificially. It's not we who wants something. So why do we want it in the material world? Just because we did it in the past. So that's the only reason. That's why we still have this desire. So for example, of course you can feel some hunger, but it doesn't mean that we have to have a desire to only think about food. It's silly. If you deepen all your intelligence into the desire of having food and nothing else, the feeling of hunger does not mean that this is my desire. It's just a function of supporting my life in this body. Well, the rest of the artificial desires, they were imposed. A person is not born with a cigarette in his mouth. There's no need for that. So why does he have this desire? This desire was not supposed to even emerge in his life. So he got this desire from someone that was doing it. And then that person, he transferred this taste to this person. So everything that we are doing in this life, it gives us the taste, either it's pleasant or not pleasant. So we either reject it or we accept it. If we don't do it, we just don't know about its existence. It's just the way I was fantasizing when I was in my childhood. So I wanted to create a 100-meter tube in order to go down into the water and just to live. So why is this tube so, the snorkel is called the snorkel, why is it so short? I wanted to make it way longer. And I wanted to go deep down. And then the adults later on, they told me, like, do you even understand that if you go down to the bottom, you will not even be able to breathe because the pressure is too high. Your lungs will not even be functioning because they've already been there, the adults. And that's when I've understood that it's not a good idea. So first of all, you have to understand, you have to either reject it or accept it. It's your karma. So there are also desires that are very silly, not based on your experience, just on your imagination. Well, I want to go to Mars. I'll meet there a Martian, like a female Martian, and we'll have a whole bunch of interesting stories. Yeah, just try to get inside of this device and go to Mars. Do you think anything will remain of you? You've never done it before. That's why you're fantasizing that you can conquer the whole universe. They're all silly. Just like you entered this world saying that, oh, everything is beautiful, the nature is perfect, we'll do this and that, we all have this imagination. But then you realize that you have to do some work in order to reach it. And this is your experience. So all these desires are illusional, they're just your dreams. Just the dreams of your soul. The soul comes from the spiritual world. It's almighty. But then when it gets to this body, things change. So how can I actually unite the principle of movement and non-movement? That's a good there's a good example about a car. A driver sits in the car, but he doesn't move the car. He doesn't push the wheels. The desires can be equal to inaction. Well, partially, our desires is just some kind of an impulse, but we do not perform this action. Just because being silly, we think that we are acting, but actually the material world is acting. So am I supposed to have the feeling of a close relationships with my guru? Like to be very devoted to guru? You know, we have different last names, the national letters are different. If you're talking about spiritual relationships, well, it's a hard work, you have to elevate on this level. So it's more about the deep desire for knowledge. The question is, my mentor says that I have to be really devoted to my guru. Well, if your mentor says so he is right. As a mentor, he is right. You have to have guru in your life. Guru is needed if you're taking this life seriously. Otherwise, you don't need guru. Why do I need a special device if I do not even know the way it functions? Why do I need millions of dollars if I do not even know how to spend them? Why do you need guru that enable if I don't follow his teachings? If there's a desire, it will happen gradually. You see, we've been reading Bhagavad Gita, and I'm sure a lot of us starting having these desires in the heart. So listen to your heart. Your mentor formally, he says everything correctly, but also you have to listen to yourself. The mentor advises you, but it's up to you to make this decision. The question is, will you follow all the teachings of your guru? 16 rounds of japa every day, the regulating principles. But the ritual itself is just a formality. First of all, you have to understand, will you follow the teachings of your guru? So the question is, besides the devotional service, is there nothing else outside? Well, it can be put this way. Usually we're talking about the rules, some regulations. So something we accept, something we reject, this is the way, this is our path. Uttamatikari does not divide anything. It sees everything to be a spiritual thing. It's transcendental. Having transcendental vision, you will not be able to preach. You have to go down a little bit in order to start teaching others. You have to go down, you have to take just one step down, without, of course, losing the spiritual vision. And that's when he will be able to preach. So Paramatma is everywhere. It's piercing every living being. But don't forget about one very important thing. All the living entities, they do not know anything about it because they're living in ignorance. So no one is performing the pure devotional service because they all need help. They have to be conscious. By the fact, God is needed everywhere. We need His protection. So what is the difference between set of mind and thoughts? The set of mind is something that is inside you, like deep inside you. For example, a person is feeling happy, so that's how he's getting happy thoughts. This is called a set of mind, the depth of your mind. And the deepest set of mind is described in Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. It's called Samadha. This is the transcendental set of mind. In material world, there can be the following examples. When we are in illusion, but we are feeling some happiness. Usually the newly married, they're so inspired, they have this set of mind. It's very deep. Or some communists or capitalists or utopists, they were feeling this happiness. It was very deep. That was a very deep set of mind. So using such examples, we can understand what the set of mind is. And of course, a negative set of mind also exists. Hating people, for example, that also can be a set of mind. Set of mind is something that influences our intelligence. That's very close to our intelligence. So there's a range from mind to the senses, and then to the boundaries of intelligence. So in this range, there's a wide range. So the whole universe is in there. All kinds of living, of lives are in there, from the senses, of feelings, and to the intelligence. The intelligence that we're using is coming from God. It's very close to the super soul. The intelligence is close to God. But in all forms of lives, it has its own limits, so that the life exists. But the mind may be working in a definite range, so that's how it's influenced our set of minds. If we are widen our intelligence, if we accept the absolute truth using our intelligence, the range for the set of mind is expanding. It will be called the mode of goodness. So the mind will be able to understand the transcendental condition, the state samadhi. So if the intelligence is shrinking, there is no range for expansion for your mind. So this set of mind will not be deep in this case. If you do something good for this person, he will forget about it the next second. There is no depth in him. But if we develop our intelligence, Buddha Yoga, the range will be expanding as well. We will have much wider experience in this life. So the question is, should I only accept Guru until when I have this really deep desire to accept Guru. Well, I chant 16 rounds of japa every day, but I don't have this very deep desire to accept Guru. That's not a problem. You have to accept him. So the question is, if my Guru is coming to my dreams, does that mean that he's already started thinking about me as well? Does that mean that we have a connection already? Well, of course, if he's coming to your dreams, yes, you do have this connection already. So if Guru is not satisfied with your surface, how can I understand if he is satisfied or not satisfied? The answer is that, well, you can just judge it by his face, by the expression of his face. You will get to understand. You will understand how to do it using your experience. It's not even a question. It goes without saying. If you follow all the teachings of your Guru, you will understand how to differentiate things. It will happen automatically. If you do something and then you will think, oh, Guru Maharaj would not do that. You would feel his presence. So something you've done not in a very positive way. So Guru Maharaj hasn't told to do that. So the question is, if you commit to Krishna, does that mean that you're not in control of your life anymore? Well, you will not be in control of your material desires. You know, it sounds terrible, right? So don't think that this is just a slavery. It's just about your material desires. All the material desires, they lead us to sufferings. If you commit, if you devote to Krishna, it's the liberation. It's not a slavery. So for example, liberated people are the people who follow the laws of the government. The ones who do not follow the rules, the constitution of the government, they are in prison. So if we follow the teachings of Krishna, that's why we are liberated. If we do not follow Krishna, the material nature controls us. So the question is, sometimes the devotees say that there are not enough feelings in their lives. So how can they solve this problem? Not enough of emotions. So if you do something just in order to feel something as a result, so for example, bear in circus, he does some tricks just for the piece of sugar. So bear is trying his hard, he's doing his best, and he even seems to be very wise, but he does all these things just for the piece of sugar. So this is the set of mind of this bear. If you do something just for taking pleasure, for understanding your results, if you do your service correctly, you will feel dissatisfaction in your heart. This unsatisfaction, it comes from a not very devotional service. You have to serve with love, do it beautifully and with the due qualification. If you do everything right, you will feel this satisfaction in your heart. And referring to emotions, when you can enrich them just by singing and dancing, play in theater for as long as you want. And of course, if you block yourself out from all these things, and if you do not follow your nature, of course you will be suffering. So please explain us the definition of a devotee. Can it be in different religions? Well, of course, they can be in any religion. In ISKCON, of course, there's the biggest number of devotees in here, because here the conception of a devoted service is open. It is clear to understand. This conception is opened, it's clearly opened. So we do understand the concept of a devoted service. Just in ISKCON there are more people like this. There are either on this way or they already fulfill something. But in other religions, the concept of bhakti is not fully opened. Without bhakti, there is no religion. Any religion has at least some elements of bhakti. Sometimes they can transfer to jnana yoga, karma yoga. It's just a different combination of all these things. But in any case, if a person follows his religion for his entire life, he's also coming to bhakti, he's approaching bhakti. There's no difference. In Gita it says that you can go either analytically or you can be engaged in a devotional service. You can go along the austerity path and clarify all your sins. But sooner or later, a sincere person has to be Vaishnavas, the servant of God, in any kind of religion, in any confession. So, is there a way that a person can get rid of his sufferings forever? So there is one way, one method. So when Prabhupada was observing a temple being built by his disciples, so he came there just to see the way it was being built. So they were explaining him all the rooms. They said that, okay, here we'll have a hospital. And then Prabhupada said, no, there's no place for hospital in a temple. It should be located separately. We don't do such things in a temple. This is the material side of it. Temple is supposed to be only transcendental. But one of his disciples didn't quite like it. He didn't understand Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, maybe you know the method to fight cancer without going to a hospital? Well, Prabhupada meant that there's no hospital needed in a temple. But the hospital, of course, hospitals are needed separated from the temples. So Prabhupada said, of course I know the way to fight cancer. Well, all the disciples were shocked. Prabhupada knows such a secret, how to fight cancer. So Prabhupada said, of course, you have to repeat Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And gradually your material desires, they will get purified. You will develop spiritual body. You will go to Vaikuntha Loku, in the spiritual world, and there will be no cancer for you. So that's the temple. That's the best way to fight cancer. So that's how you can get liberated forever from all the sufferings. So why is it said in Islam that the God's name is secret? It's hidden. Is his name Krishna? So just look at the 99 names of Allah. It's just amazing. That's the whole science. All this materialistic science is nothing against these 99 names of Allah. It's just even higher than all of the studies. So, but when we get to this level and we still do not understand the following sense, only the next name opens up. Only if we understood something before it. If you do not understand what Krishna means, what are you asking about? It's not like you're looking in a keyhole. Of course, there are some names. What Yashoda said. Well, you have to be Yashoda in order to repeat these names. Everything is in Krishna's name. So the question is, what is the most influential thing that influences our state of mind? What should we learn to do? So, as I said, the state of mind depends on your intelligence, the set of your intelligence. So it's more about intelligence now. You have to understand who you are and your relations with God. So you have to understand that I'm very little, I'm tiny. I'm very, very little. But the God is limitless. So first of all, you have to understand these two things. After that, you'll understand that your intelligence is expanding. So your false ego is shrinking, your spiritual nature is expanding. So your state of mind will be changing and your perception of this world will be changing as well. Not the senses and emotions control it, the intelligence. It gives you the range for the emotions. So first of all, you have to understand that I am Krishna's servant. I am the eternal servant of Krishna. He is big, huge and great. I am small. First of all, you have to understand his qualities, his actions, his deeds, and make sure and understand how great he is. I have to reach the limit of my intelligence. So that's what called the spiritual practice. You reach your limits, and then furthermore, and further on, and further on. So that's how you expand your intelligence. And in this sphere, in this space, you will start feeling what you're supposed to feel. So our practice is very simple. Just listen to mantra carefully. Listen to transcendental sounds carefully, attentively. The state of mind will emanate by itself. So there are many good wishes here in the chat. People would like to have more lectures. So by the next Sunday, we will have started a new program. There will be a new topic. So there will be radio and television and even 5G with time. If you do all this stuff, so who will do this? You're asking me, when will I do radio? Who's gonna do all this stuff? Devotees, you have to understand something. So I'm telling it right now to the devotees. For that set of minds. When are we gonna have radio and this and that? So one time when I went to Vrindavan, there was one devotee, she was a friend of our family. So she said, I have a surprise for you. I've rented a room for you. There's a very good place. So you will spend a whole weekend there. So then we went there. Narada Kund is the name of this place. So now we can live there. So we can hear all these sounds, feel all this atmosphere, and washing our bodies in Radha Kunti. So the first time I went to Parikrama, it was not too long. It was beautiful, chanting japa. And then my spiritual brother comes up. He's a sannyasi. So I think he was an American. So he's saying, what are you doing here? So he was looking at me and saying this kind of aggressively, in an aggressive way. So, and I said, well, I'm living here. I'm supposed to be here for several days. I was just boasting. So what are you here? Why are you here? What is your service? And I thought to myself, well, yes, indeed, what is my service? He said, are you a tourist here or something? And I said, what am I supposed to do here? So he said, look around. You see how much garbage it is over here? So clean it. And I thought to myself, well, how is it connected to me? What am I supposed to do with that? He said to me, you see, there are no people cleaning this place. Only the locals do this. So that's the main service. All the locals, all the people living here, they are engaged in this service. They're cleaning the place by themselves. You just walk in here just like as a tourist? Oh, so I thought to myself, that's what the real devoted service is. And I was just having fun here, I was just resting. So and then all the disciples learned about it. And I told them, so why did you come here, you tourists? There's a lot of work to do here, let's clean this place. So that was an amazing experience. It was an amazing festival. So serving Krishna, you have to do what you want to do. So if he offers something, do it. That's a real service. It's a high time to launch a lot of TV channels and radio frequencies serving Krishna, telling about Krishna, spreading the word of Krishna. So I've been practicing every day 2 rounds of Maha Mantra. Sometimes I just want to read what Jesus said. Can I unite all this knowledge? Well, I don't know, I don't do that. It's just, I've never read any prayers. No, I've never prayed to God before because I was an atheist. And still I'm more like a scientist than a religious man. The way I understand what the prayer is, it's not like what you read a prayer and that makes it a prayer. It's supposed to happen in your heart spontaneously. Prayer has to come spontaneously. If you refer to God with some material desires, it's not a prayer anymore. Well, it is a prayer, but not a real one. Well, my opinion is that you can do whatever you want. But if you really want to hear the God's voice in your heart and talk to Him, you have to repeat His names. You have to repeat the names of God. That's what the most important thing is. Jesus' prayers, some others' prayers. The point is that there is the name of God in there. That's why it's so powerful. And when you feel His name, when you become so small, non-significant, and you understand how great He is. So that's where you have to appreciate it. You're not asking just for health or money. Although, yeah, some people also pray for that in order to perform service. Anyway, when you're asking God about something, this is good anyway. So there are no restrictions. Just do whatever you want. You just keep on trying, keep on searching. I know that there are Muslims that even chant Hare Krishna mantra as well. I've never done that. It's just I've never been a religious person in my life. So these are all questions for today. Only the gratitude to you. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.